Today, we're going on a truly epic, once-in-a-lifetime journey. But we aren't looking at it through the dusty lens of a historian. Nope, we are following Arush. He's a teenager from Kolkata, and his family decided to just pack up and tackle this massive spiritual pilgrimage together. It's this incredibly uplifting story that weaves ancient faith right into modern family dynamics. So let's look at what actually pushed them to hit the road. To really get this journey, you have to understand the colossal stakes involved. For Arush, this wasn't just your standard annual festival. The buzz on the news, the radio, it was all about this exact specific moment in time. The Purna Mahakumbh in Prayagraj, an event happening after a mind-boggling 144-year gap. I mean, for Arush, his dad, and their extended neighborhood family, the sheer magnitude of millions of pilgrims gathering for an event you literally only see once in several lifetimes, well, it was just an undeniable call to adventure. So how does a 144-year gap even happen? It all comes down to a really fascinating 12-year cycle. The Kumbh Mela rotates across 4 highly auspicious locations in India: Nashik, Ujjain, Haridwar, and Prayagraj. But the Purna Mahakumbh, which is like the ultimate granddaddy version of this gathering, only happens in Prayagraj once every 144 years. The next one? Yeah, that won't happen until the year 2169. So you can totally see why Arush and his family felt that making this trip was practically destiny. But you might be wondering why these specific spots. Well, the word kumbh is Sanskrit for pot, and the backstory goes all the way back to ancient texts like the Rig Veda. According to legend, during a mythical churning of the ocean by gods and demons, 4 drops of sacred nectar fell to the earth at those exact 4 locations we just mentioned. Millions believe that bathing in these waters at the astrologically correct time actually cleanses them of their sins. It's a profound tradition that's basically 2,000 years old. Okay, but imagine the actual logistics of attending an event with millions of other people. Normally, an 800-kilometer trip from Kolkata to Prayagraj has plenty of options, but for the Mahakumbh, it's a whole different ballgame. The trains were completely booked solid. Flight fares skyrocketed to 5 times the normal rate, and renting just a simple tent at the Mela was running up to 10,000 rupees a night. Arush actually felt a shadow of doubt creeping in. It honestly looked financially impossible, and they almost gave up, joking that they'd just have to wait another 144 years. But here is where community totally saves the day. 72,000 rupees. That is the amount it costs to rent a spacious 17-seater minibus. Their next-door neighbor, who they affectionately call Sarojit Uncle, managed to negotiate this brilliant save. By gathering a group of family and neighbors, they split the cost down to just under 5,000 rupees per person. Suddenly, this impossible 800-kilometer road trip was back on. So, on February 1st at exactly 6:10 a.m., this big group of family and neighbors packed into that minibus. They loaded up their luggage and a bunch of empty 5-liter bottles, to bring back that holy water later, and they essentially drove across a massive chunk of the country. They rolled through West Bengal, through Jharkhand, crossed into Bihar where they stopped at the spiritual city of Gaya, and finally past the ancient city of Varanasi and Uttar Pradesh, all to reach Prayagraj. And this wasn't just some solemn 2,000-year-old spiritual pilgrimage. It was a modern family road trip. Arush and his little brother Avian were watching Disney's Coco and Zootopia on their tablets, playing offline games Arush had smartly downloaded before they left. They even stopped in Shaktigarh for these famous Bengali langsha sweets and savory jalmuri. The adults reminisced, shared a ton of laughs, and enjoyed modest meals of roti and sabzi right there on the bus. It's just this beautiful snapshot of family bonding. But make no mistake, the drive itself was grueling. 19. That's how many hours it took before they finally reached their destination. They were sleeping on the highway, navigating super heavy lorry traffic, until they finally pulled into the Kana Shyam parking lot. It was well past 3 a.m. when they finally stepped off that bus, completely exhausted, but, practically buzzing with anticipation. And the payoff? Oh, it was immediate. When they finally took an auto to the entrance, all that exhaustion just melted into pure awe. As dawn broke, the vibrant, colorful tents of the Mela were illuminated by these twinkling lights and the rising sun. Arush realized right then and there that enduring that 19-hour drive was one of the absolute best decisions of his life. Now, navigating a festival with millions of people requires some serious strategy. They were assigned to a shivir, basically a camp, in Sector 16. After dropping their bags and sharing some morning tea with other pilgrims, they decided to head straight to the Triveni Sangam, which is the sacred confluence of the rivers. By taking their holy dip and performing the Ganga Ma Puja a day early, they captured the profound, peaceful, spiritual essence of the waters right before the most chaotic crowds arrived. Smart move, right? Actually, scratch that. It wasn't all just peaceful seclusion. They definitely had to navigate overwhelming crowds eventually. Walking to a nearby Hanuman temple, Arish described the sea of humanity crashing together like a giant wave. It was thrilling, filled with delightful little moments like discovering these amazing 50 rupee baked biscuits from a local vendor. But it also had stark realities. While navigating those chaotic throngs, Surjit Uncle's mother actually had her money bag and her japmala, her prayer beads, stolen by a pickpocket. A pretty harsh reminder of the bustling chaos surrounding them. So they reached the destination, they took the holy dip, the main event, the entire goal of that crazy 800-kilometer journey was officially achieved. But it begs the question, how does a teenager process this intense experience once that main objective is finally checked off the list? Well, instead of just taking a nap after lunch, Arush decided to practice seva. He spent over an hour just eagerly walking around their camp, serving food and water to his fellow pilgrims who were still eating. It was a completely selfless act, just giving back to the vibrant community that had gathered there. And he noted how incredibly energized it made him feel. And that spiritual journey seamlessly continued into their simple evening explorations. The family walked the Mela grounds, noting how remarkably safe it felt, thanks to the army personnel maintaining peace. It's fascinating how the absolute simplest moments become core memories, isn't it? Like, they stumbled upon a stall selling masala Maggi noodles that tasted surprisingly amazing after a long day on their feet. They also hit up an ISKCON stall, ate warm prasad, and bought new japmalas to replace the one that had been stolen earlier. Then came the next morning. It was the Shahi Snan, the absolute most auspicious bathing day of the entire festival. Waking up at 6 a.m., Arush, his dad, and Kaushik uncle bravely returned to the waters. And they perfectly timed it. They managed to get in and out of the sacred river just moments before the throngs of people violently doubled into this unmanageable mass. They emerged feeling entirely revitalized. But as every seasoned traveler knows, getting there is only half the battle. As they packed up their souvenirs and those 5-liter bottles filled with holy Ganga water, the final hurdle popped up, navigating out of the Mela. They struggled for a long time just trying to find transport for their group of 8 among literally millions of dispersing pilgrims. Everyone was tired, hungry, and just desperately trying to get back to the Kanasham parking lot where their minibus was waiting. And then, a small miracle. They finally found a Toto driver who didn't just give them a ride, but actually gave up his own customers to help them find additional autos and negotiate fair prices for the rest of the group. As Arish's father beautifully noted, in a place filled with millions of people seeking the divine, they had just witnessed it right there, in the selfless kindness of a total stranger. With that final blessing, they hit the road back to Calcutta. Now, the physical journey home was definitely faster. It took less than 16 hours compared to the 19 exhausting hours it took to get there. But the family inside that minibus, they had returned permanently changed. They shared more movies, more laughter, and an unbreakable bond forged by a 144-year legacy, shared challenges, and genuine acts of selfless service. I'll leave you with this final thought. Arush's story shows us that, while a dip in a holy river is profoundly significant, the true magic of a pilgrimage often lies in the journey itself. It's in those shared snacks on a bumpy bus ride, the simple act of serving water to a stranger, and the unbelievable kindness of a driver going out of his way to help a tired family. So consider how you might recognize the divine in your own everyday connections. What simple acts of service might be waiting in your own community right now to transform a regular day into a sacred one? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep looking for the sacred in the simple things.